Hello Simmers and welcome to another video. So I've noticed that adoption in The Sims 2 actually is quite different from the other Sims games, and especially a giant step up from the first Sims game. So first and foremost, let's take a look at how adoption is done in The Sims 2 game. So to adopt in the game, an adult Sims, regardless of if they are single or married, picks up the phone, and under services and in the menu adoption is the first option. So if the Sims meets the requirement for adoption, which are a minimum financial requirement of 3,000 simoleons, and that the Sim doesn't have a memory of having a child taken away from the social worker, the adoption will go through. And it's interesting to note that the requirement for not having had a child taken away by the social worker only applies to the adult in the household who has a memory of the social worker and not applied to the household in general. Another detail that I find quite funny is that if the family doesn't live up to the financial requirement, an info box pops up telling the family to please require more dough. Like, what? I feel like that's kind of a financial burn. And also, I've never heard money being talked about as dough. So please require more dough. It sounds really like street slang for money. But fair enough. But yeah, when the adoption goes through, the social worker will come with the adoptee the coming day at 10. And the adoption itself doesn't cost anything. So there is these two requirements, and otherwise than that, the Sim can initiate the adoption. So upon arriving, the player has three options. They can decide if they want to adopt a baby, a toddler, or a child. And the player can only decide on the name of the adoptee if they adopt a baby. So toddlers and children are already named, and the name cannot be changed. And you cannot also decide on their looks or their gender. So it's really randomized. And the adoptee is not genetically related to your Sim. So it's quite realistic in regards to that you are adopting a foreign child and welcoming them into your family. So this is a really nice detail in The Sims 2, and I feel that it adds both a realistic touch to adoption and also a very humane look on the children already have been taken away. So if you have neglected children, if you have a child taken away from the social worker from other families in the neighborhood, these neglected children will be first in line in their respective age categories for adoption. So the adoptee will lose family ties to its biological family, but they will remember the Simmers and keep their relationships with them. So the adoptee will still be a part of the adoptive family's family tree. But as a player, you'll remember them because you remember them being taken away from your other family, and they will still remember their relationships to their previous family. And I feel that that's quite humane. But according to the Sims Wiki, there are rare instances where the adoptee keeps the family tree of the biological family, but to me that seems like a bug. So, as I said, personally, I think it's such a nice detail that the neglected children from other families are given another chance with a new family within the same neighborhood, and also that they keep the relationships to their biological family. I think it's a nice, humanely touch added to the game instead of just generating new Sims. And yeah, I know it's a game, but still, as a player, you have an emotional tie to that child that you had taken away. So it's a nice touch. And curiously enough, adopting a child doesn't fulfill a Simmers have a baby want, which I have noticed in my gameplay before, and is also stated on the Sims Wiki page. So it makes sense that it isn't fulfilled when there is a want itself for adopting a child, but I still find it odd, and I think it's odd because I would like to have the two wants equal. So it's not less of having a child or having a baby if you adopt. But again, if there is another one called Adopting a Child, I guess it's fair. But yeah, according to the Sims Wiki, the want for grandchildren will be fulfilled either way, if it's an adopting, or if the family are adopting a child or having a child the natural way. So if we compare adoption to the first Sims game, The Sims 1, as I said in the intro, the adoption opportunities in The Sims 2 are quite a step up from that in The Sims, because there, Simmers cannot decide themselves to adopt, but they have to await a phone call suggesting the family to adopt. So, like okay, I just have a cat who runs crazy around here. Can you hear him? No, well, probably not. There's going to be an info box popping up suggesting to adopt a baby after completing romantic interactions. And according to the Sims Wiki, these calls will usually occur around 4 p.m. and will ask a player to decide if they should adopt a baby at that time. So you'll have to answer yes or no then and there, which is an odd timing too, considering that there's a high chance that your simmer will be asleep at that time. So it's really not easy to adopt in The Sims. And just the fact that the player themselves can initiate an adoption is a huge step up for me in regards to gameplay. And also I've played around in The Sims 1 quite a lot, and I've actually not been able to have that info box asking for adoption in my gameplay. So it's just really not easy. In The Sims 3, Sims can also adopt by calling the adoption services on the phone, and the social worker will arrive immediately with the adoptee, so you don't have to wait till 10 the next day. And they will even come back later if there's no teen or adult or elder at the home. And this is quite a smart detail compared to The Sims 2, where the player has to make sure that a sim, a teen or adult or elder, is at home when the social worker comes at 10 a.m. And if there's no one at home when the social worker the social worker will come back within a very short time to take away the neglected child. And I find it quite annoying because at 10 a.m. usually your simmers will automatically go to work or to school, so you really have to make sure that you're ready for the adoptee to arrive. And obviously it makes good sense, because of course you should be ready to welcome the new child coming to your family. But I don't know, for me it just goes wrong quite often, because the simmers just choose to go to work themselves. But anyway, in The Sims 3, the player can decide on age, but also on gender, and change the name of the adoptee. So the player has more options in regards to choice in The Sims 3. Another detail in Sims 3 is that, according to Sims Wiki, if a child has been taken away from the household itself cannot adopt for the next 5 days. So like in The Sims 2, the parent who lost a child can no longer adopt, but the household is also sanctioned in The Sims 3, where it isn't in The Sims 2. But then again, it's only for 5 days, so it's not like I guess it's not a huge problem in regards to gameplay. So the most different game in regards to adoption is The Sims 4. First and foremost, the player has a much larger room of choice in regards to the adoptee. The player is presented with a pool of adoptable children, both babies and toddlers and children, and the player selects a child to adopt. So the sim will then walk off to the lot to pick up the child, and the adoption costs 1,000 simoleons. So the player can also decide on the adoptee's first name and last name, so personalization is very much possible. In The Sims 4, there is no social worker bringing the child, and also not the potential issue of your sim not being home for the adoption, because they're actually going to pick up the child themselves. And also, it's a first sim game where it costs money to adopt, which is quite realistic though, even though the price of 1,000 simoleons is just so low that I find it more symbolic than anything else. And to be honest, I think the price should be much higher so that the player really has to save up for the opportunity to adopt. A detail that I find quite interesting and that is quite special to The Sims 3 and Sims 4 is that, and this is according to the Sims Wiki again, is that the adoptive parents will get a few days off work, regardless of their age, to take care of the new family member. And that's also quite a nice detail. But as you can hear, there's quite a few differences to how adoption is done in the 4 Sims games. And I really like how it's done in The Sims 2 for me personally. I especially like how flexible adoption is and how realistic adoption is in regards to how personalized the adoptee will be and that the player can initiate the adoption. So that was a quick view into adoption in the Sims games. So please let me know in the comments which game is your favorite in regards to adoption, and also which game you find most realistic in this aspect. So I don't know much about adoption in real life, but I think that either Sims 2 or 3 are the most realistic from what I know, and also the ones that I enjoy most in regards to gameplay. So thank you so much for tuning into this video, and stay tuned for other videos. Bye!